not really sure if I should share this publicly or not, because what I'm about to say, some people can take this and use this for evil. But I'm trusting you watching this right now will use this for good. Because what I'm about to share can help you double or triple the amount of sales calls that you book, the amount of clients that you sign, and skyrocket the amount of sales that you make. And it's using a timeless persuasion and influence marketing strategy. Now, Tony Robbins has this quote that every one of us is a package of beliefs, perspective, drive, and influences. And I'm going to unpack why this quote from TR can help you book more calls and create more sales from your social media in just a second. But look, if you're an online coach right now who's stuck around that 5 to 15K per month mark and you're dealing with these typical growing pains, like some weeks you may have a loaded freaking calendar full of calls, and the next week, crickets. And your leads maybe feel like freebie seekers versus actual motivated buyers when you're talking with them in the DMs. Maybe you're feeling a bit stressed if you'll be able to keep income coming in consistently, because right now it feels like a friggin' roller coaster. And you're beating your head against the wall trying to crack the code on getting to these consistent 20, 30, 40, 50, 60K months. Just know that you're not alone here. And what I'm about to share with you is going to unpack why a lot of this is happening, especially right now in 2024, with how crowded the market is, with how information right now is very commoditized. It's like over 602 million, something like that, social media posts being published every single day. The sad fact is that only 3% of online coaches in general, I was going to say fitness, health, but it's really just in general because online coaching has really expanded over the last few years. Only 3% ever make it past 20K per month. And that's sad because there's nothing worse than knowing that you as a coach have the ability to grow more, heal more people, help more people, earn more, and have that dream life where you're impacting people and you have that income, but not actually getting there. That's a shame because I know it's absolutely possible because I used to be there. I was bouncing between 5 and 15K a month. It was inconsistent. It was stressful. And honestly, it was burning me the heck out. I was posting content and I had grown a bit of a following and I was doing pretty well from the outside for most people's standards, but I knew that I had way more in the tank, way more. Something was off though. There was some content secret that I knew the big guys were doing that I apparently wasn't. I was seeing people around me that I knew weren't any more talented than me. In fact, I felt that I was more talented as a coach than they were, but they were having much bigger months. And here I was posting workouts, how-tos, inspirational quotes, and other random kind of spray and pray advice that just wasn't bringing me the clients that I actually wanted to work with. It was like pulling freaking teeth to try to get clients consistently. Even though that I was getting, some of my posts were getting hundreds of likes, it still didn't matter. I was getting a bunch of freebie seekers and tire kickers. And long story short, I tried a bunch of stuff, and one day I made a particular kind of post that I had never made before. And now jokingly, I call it Get a Shitload of Clients post, because at the time it got me 11 clients in about a week and a half from that one post. And I made over $30,000 in 1 month from one post. Now, I'm not saying that what I'm about to share today with you is going to help you get that exact same result. To be clear, it's not as easy as I just made it sound. There is a system to making this consistent for you. Now, the two principles that make this system work is belief shifting and creating demand. But first, we're going to dive into this in just a second. But first, let's talk about vaccines. And no, I'm not about to get political on you. This is totally not me. But in order for you to understand this principle, we're going to walk through vaccines because it's the biggest event that I think all of us globally can identify with and it will be relatable. So in order to get people to rush to take a vaccine, you don't just sell a vaccine. Nobody would want the vaccine. What you do is you sell a belief system. Now again, I'm not getting political here. I'm not saying what's right or what's wrong, but let's just pick this apart. There is a core belief. There's a big scary virus. The real problem, you can't fight it naturally, so you need a vaccine. And then time, right? If you don't take it right now, you'll not only die, you're going to kill others. Here's evidence. Evidence, right? Money. It's free. Their unique method, it's easy. Just drive up and just get a quick jab. Help. Do it for you because we're trained medical professionals. We'll do it for you. It's really easy. Identity. You're either vaxxed or an anti-vaxxer. You see? So the truth here is, now that is a very big and probably a very polarizing example for many, but I think many can identify with whatever you believe, what actually happened, how they actually made millions and millions and millions of people, in fact, billions of people, either choose to be one identity or the other. And depending on what your identity was and what your belief systems identified with, you chose one route or the other. So the truth is, the only way to get people to engage with your content regularly and to buy your stuff consistently is by getting them to believe what you need them to believe and to assume a new identity, an identity that they actually want, something that they are aspiring to be. You're not just selling a coaching program here. You're selling a belief system, a unique solution to get to, which we'll pack in a second, and an identity shift for your audience. If you think about this even from another large scale, Steve Jobs, we all know Steve Jobs, he transformed Apple. Not because he had better technology than, say, Microsoft. I mean, this is probably debatable, but not because he had better technology, because he sold a belief system of thinking differently, being an innovator, being ahead of the curve, challenging the status quo. And he sold that belief system. And once you believed those things, you bought Apple products. I mean, heck, I don't know where it is, but I have an Apple phone. I'm filming, but I'm on a Mac right now. I obviously believe those things. And if you have kids, you probably do this with your kids. You get them to eat your food. And we've all probably heard this line before. Like you tell them, or maybe you heard as a kid, there's starving kids in Africa or India or wherever. And they believe it. They feel guilty for not eating, so they eat. Now we need to do this deliberately, intentionally, and strategically in your business so your prospects want to buy. And that's the key here. They want to buy. This is the quote unquote secret that's made me millions of dollars. And this is the same timeless principle that people like, name dropping some people here, like Aristotle. He had a whole framework around this. Martin Luther King used this. Martin Luther King Jr. Hitler, very polarizing, right? Hitler used this to start a war. Joe Rogan uses this in his podcast. And that's just to name a few people who have built some quote-unquote insane communities, aka a lot of them built cults. And as you can see though, like people have used this exact framework for movements, and they've also used this to start wars. I trust, as I alluded to at the beginning, that you'll use these principles that we're about to walk through to impact more people's lives, and of course to become stupidly rich so you can impact way more lives than you ever could before. This way you can build your own tribe of buyers, you can lead your own movement. So let's go ahead and walk through. There's 2 different identities that you have to define here, and there's 6 beliefs that you need to shift in order to get your audience to engage with your content and to buy your stuff regularly. So let's first start with the before and the after. The before, like who are these people before they use your solution? So if you have a coaching program, say that helps parents lose weight, or you help people become speakers, whatever it is for you. What is an identity they currently have they do not want and they're embarrassed to currently hold? Maybe they're a struggling business owner. Maybe they're a fat, overweight parent. Right? They don't want that identity and they're embarrassed to actually have it. We want to define it and give it a name. So for me, I might say that I'm helping struggling coaches. Maybe you're helping out of shape parents. Give it a name. We want to define it. So that way your target market says, shoot, that is me. I don't want to be that anymore. So for example, we can look at like, what is a statistical undesired current result that your client has? Again, it could be as simple as, hey, I'm overweight parent. That's kind of how they're identifying. I'm a parent, a bit out of shape right now. What are some of the complaints that they are currently complaining about? What are some of the problems that they currently have? Maybe they're complaining about being overweight or being tired all the time. Or maybe some of the problems are that they can't fit in their same clothes anymore. They're having to buy new suits or new whatever for work. What are some of the old ways that they're going about trying to solve that problem? What are some of the things they're currently doing that aren't working? What are some of the undesired feelings that they have? Like, For example, if right now they're overweight and they're trying to lose weight and they're doing it by hopping on fad diets, maybe they feel kind of like a failure because nothing seems to work. They feel overweight, they feel like a failure. It's a terrible feeling. What are some false beliefs they have to why they think they're stuck in that problem? Do they believe it's their genetics? Do they believe that they just haven't found the right diet for them? What do they currently believe? Do they believe they don't have the time and day to actually dedicate to their health and fitness, right? Now, you can use this for anything. So whatever your niche is right now, like I'll kind of apply these principles to that. So really getting clear on like who that current avatar is. Get into their head, as Dan Kennedy said, enter the conversation in your customer's mind. Now, let's define the after. Who are these people after they use your solution? This should be the identity they want and are proud to have. We want to define it just like we did with the other one and give them a name. So that way when you say it, they're like, yes, this is exactly who I want to be. For example, how I have it in my business is I'm helping coaches go from struggling coach to becoming the sought after and in-demand coach they're meant to be. And most of my audience, they're like, hell yeah, I want to be an in-demand coach. I want to be sought after. I want to have a lot of clients. I want to have a profitable business that gives me the freedom and the time freedom, the money freedom, and the impact that I desire. What is that? So if you're helping overweight parents, maybe they want to be like a superhero parent. They want to be a fit parent. So when you're crafting this aspiring identity, think about some of the desired results that they actually want. What is life like with the solutions? What is the new method? So say like if people are dieting to try to lose weight, maybe you have a really simple strength training or nutrition protocol that you're going to give to them. That is a new method. Think about like really big extremes, like keto did this. Intermittent fasting people jump onto. There are all kinds of different workouts and nutrition things. Think about that, right? What are the desired feelings they have now that they have those results? Do they feel more confident? Do they feel sexy AF? What do they feel? What are some of the new beliefs that they now have? What do they hold? So getting clear on like who that current identity is and that aspiring identity of what they want to be is absolutely key for creating a demand gap. Because people will move mountains to become a new version of themselves and to get out of a painful, undesirable version of themselves. So the 6 beliefs that are often common in any kind of business, but especially in a coaching business, there's going to be a core belief, the main problem that somebody's facing. So there's a core belief they're holding to why they're currently taking actions or inactions to even solve a problem. And then there's the beliefs about why they have the problem. And then there's beliefs around time. What's another one? Around money, around the actions they're taking, aka like the method, the unique method they're trying to use, and even getting help in the first place. I mean, how many of us, if we've been in the coaching industry for a while, have like heard somebody, it's like, yeah, I think I could do this on my own. Cool. I would love for you to do it. Go ahead. But like most people don't have the discipline and the drive and the motivation to actually do that. And so here's how to actually shift beliefs. We'll use a really simple example here. So we're going to go ahead and use weight loss because I think it's very timeless and most people can understand it no matter where you're at in your business or industry or whatever. But let's think about current beliefs. So what's a current belief that somebody that wants to lose weight might have? Current belief might be like, we can literally break down the current beliefs for each one of those, for like the core belief, the problem, time, money, their actions they're taking, do they need help, all of that stuff. But let's go ahead and just stick with the core belief. So the core belief might be like, hey, I'm overweight and I'm going to try to lose weight by dieting and just moving more. Those are like great first steps, but it's not actually helping them. And so the problems their current belief is causing them is they are under eating. And so they're not actually getting the results. They're now feeling very lethargic. They're feeling like crap. The whole experience of trying to lose weight for them is probably bad because they're doing it wrong. Maybe they're eating 600 calories a day and then they're running on the treadmill after work and they just feel miserable. So think about it. Like, what are the current beliefs they have to their core belief for solving their problem? And what are some of those current beliefs causing? And then what's the new belief that they need to have? Maybe the new belief they need to have is that instead of just trying to diet and eat as little as possible, they need to learn how to eat right. They need to learn how to eat the right amount of calories, the right proportion sizes. They need to have foods that are sustainable with them so they actually feel more energized. And then maybe that you need to get them to believe that they have to actually do strength training. Like strength training is going to be the best way to get results. And so what we're doing here is we're forming a statement being like, no, like, so if their current belief is like, I just got to eat as little as possible and just freaking run on the treadmill at work after every day, and that's causing them more problems, and you know that, your duty is to shift their beliefs being like, hey, no, the best way to get to lose weight is to make sure that you're eating right, the right amount of calories for your body, eating flexibly, and doing progressive strength training. That is the best way possible for you to be able to lose weight. And then once we have that clear, we need to be able to back it up. We can't just say a statement and expect people to believe it. And so some of the best ways that I have found, and not just I have found, I've learned this thing from like the greats like Tony Robbins and Aristotle and freaking all of the people that have started movements. This is like how they've been able to do it. And so the first thing that we do here is you can use a quote. Notice how I started off with a quote right away, and I've used a couple quotes throughout this video. You can use a quote from an authority figure, so you're borrowing their stuff. Oftentimes when I'm trying to get business owners to focus on a little bit more of their belief system and their mindset versus just the tactics and strategies, I might borrow another quote from old Tony Robbins. I might say, Tony Robbins says, success is 80% psychology, 20% strategy. People are like, oh, well, if Tony Robbins says it, it might be true. Versus if I say it and people don't have that trust with me yet, they might not believe it, even if it is true. Does that make sense? And so we want to come up with like a universal quote, a universal metaphor and analogy. So if I'm trying to get people to believe that they don't need to eat as little as possible, and instead they need to learn how to eat right for their body, maybe I use a universal metaphor or analogy talking about going to the gas station and only putting $5 in gas in the tank. Like, how far will that take you on a 10-hour road trip? Probably not far, right? You got to fuel your tank for what you're currently doing, for your goals. So you use something that everybody universally can understand, or at least your ideal client. You can use a universal story. You know, you could think about a story that might resonate with people that everybody would know. So this shouldn't be like a only you know type of story. This should be a story that everybody can understand and everybody can know. And so this could be different depending on what you're trying to shift. But I could tell this story, say I can go back to the Apple example, and I could talk about how Steve Jobs like pretty much transformed, and I did that earlier in this video. And I use a story that most people would understand and recognize because most people know who Steve Jobs is and how he transformed Apple. You can use a personal story. This could be a personal story about like how you once thought the current belief and how you started to use your new belief and how it helped you. Right? So you could talk about how you were once dieting and doing all that stuff, and then you stumbled upon this book and you read this book or this article on the internet or however it was true for you, and then you discovered this new way and you started to try it out, and all of a sudden it worked for you. So you could use a personal story. You can use a client story. You can literally use a client story the same way you would use a personal story, right? A client came in, this is what they were doing, then we had them do X, Y, Z, and now they have results. You can use a counter example. This is a great one. This is just, counter examples can come in different ways, but real simply, it's just kind of finding an external case study, right? So I could talk about like, if I was trying to get somebody to believe that they needed to eat right, maybe I would pull up like an actor or an actress that my ideal clients would know. I would be like, hey, so Scarlett Johansson ate like this and worked out like this before she got onto XYZ movie. Or Chris Hemsworth, this is his exact protocol for Thor, and if he did it, like a Hollywood actor, so you can use an external case study to get people to be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. You can also use internal data. And this is what I do a lot for my brand now, where I track this data so I could say like, hey, an average client that comes into our world generates on average of like, I can't remember the exact data now, but I think it's like 82 or 83 inbound leads within the first 7 days and books between 15 to 25 calls. Like, and I could use that internal data if I was trying to shift beliefs around like why dialing in your messaging in what we're doing now, your messaging in your content strategy is so key. So you can have internal data saying, hey, the average person loses X amount of weight when they adopt this new belief, this new principle. You see what I'm saying? And so it's absolutely key. And so to kind of wrap up this video, like, this is a timeless principle, persuasion, influence. You can consider this ethical manipulation, if you will. Doing it in a way, as I said, this could be used for evil. And so I didn't know if I should publicly share this. This is like, but I trust that you're going to use this for good. Because right now, content is so commoditized. Information is commoditized. People don't value content the same way. And so I see a lot of coaches out there who are just struggling. They're struggling to get clients consistently. They're struggling to make sales consistently. And this is one of the things that's helped me the most. This is what's helped me generate leads and calls and clients and cash on demand, because I know how to infuse these principles into my marketing and into my process. And so I trust that you're going to use this for good. So to recap this, understand that there are two different identities. There's a current identity that your audience is in. They don't want to be in it anymore. They're kind of embarrassed to be there. Identify, get really clear. And then there's the aspiring identity. This is their aspiration. This is what they want to step into. Get really clear on what that looks like. When you could do that, you could start communicating that in your marketing. It creates a gap, a demand gap. And then from there, we want to start unpacking what these beliefs are. What are their beliefs around, like, what are their core beliefs around the problem? Do they think doing it like a certain way is the best way? And you have to show them there's a different way, a better way. What are their beliefs about the problem, right? Do they have current beliefs around their problem that are causing them more problems? And you know there's a better belief, there's a better way of doing things. What are their current beliefs around time? They're like, I don't have time. But you're like, no, you do. What are their beliefs around money? If they're like, yeah, it's just really, I can't afford hiring a coach right now because X, Y, Z. Coaching is expensive. What are their beliefs around, like, your method? What are their beliefs around getting help in general? And so once you've identified what those are, you can use the same framework. You can walk through and be like, what is their current belief? What is that current belief solving, or how is that current belief causing more problems for them? What's the new belief that you want them to believe around that? And then from there, go to work, and you can use a mix of these. You don't have to use all of them. You could, especially if you're doing longer form copy, like a video like this or a landing page. But for like simple content, you can use a quote that everybody would know from an authority figure. You can use a universal metaphor and analogy. You can use a universal story, things that your audience would know. You can use a personal story to shift their belief. You can use a client story. You can use what I call counterexamples or external case studies. You can use internal data. And so apply this to your content. And yes, I will be having another video coming out here in about a week or so. That's going to be unpacking a little bit more how to infuse this into your content. But I want you to go out there and start practicing this today. And if you have any questions, let me know in the comment section below. If you found this video helpful and useful, I want you to click subscribe and let me know what your biggest takeaway was in the comments. As always, remember, your message matters now more than it ever has before. Don't be afraid to speak it. Be seen, be heard, and be impactful.